Hey, hello and welcome. My name is Ryder, and in this video today I want to share with you a very powerful resource of how to gain more awareness of the term gaslighting. Now, I focus a lot on emotional manipulative behaviour. I believe it causes a devastating amount of trauma that can form in a person's mind and then project onto our lives today, causing low self-esteem, low self-worth, leaving us fighting projections that may or may not be around today. But if we are coming across somebody who is using emotional manipulative behaviour and we have our own past trauma projections, it can double the impact of what's going on, causing immeasurable amounts of confusion. Because if we have our own trauma projections and then somebody starts to use manipulation as well, that makes it hard to even navigate. Well, is it our past or is it actually today? And that is what a person using emotional manipulative behaviour will rely on. A person who is vulnerable and having less bandwidth to understand what's actually going on. Now, unfortunately, online today, you can see a lot of people claiming that they are professionals. That doesn't mean that there are not amazing people out there, by the way. They're amazing coaches, trainers, and therapists. But there are a lot of people claiming that they're professional, but what they're doing is saying, is your ex a gaslighter? Is your partner a gaslighter? Is your boss a gaslighter? And then they're coming up with these top tips to stop the gaslighter, but making you, or whoever they're talking to, as the poor innocent little victim. Now, in the film Gaslight from 1940 or 1944, this is what I want to draw on. So as you can see here, the film from 1940, or again 1944, because there was two versions of it, a young woman whose husband slowly manipulates her into believing that she is descending into insanity. Now I'm going to go over some examples of what gaslighting actually is further along, but really focus on that statement. A young woman whose husband slowly manipulates her into believing that she is descending into insanity. And the phrase that I want you to focus on here is, he is manipulating her into believing that. He's not making her believe that. He's aligning manipulative behaviour so she starts to doubt herself. Now, when I was talking before about, there's a lot of people online who will say, that person's gaslighting me and this person's gaslighting me, and 10 top tips to stop the gaslighter. What they will very often use in their videos, and I've seen it many times now, is that person making you believe that you're a victim? Nobody makes another person believe that they are a victim. Nobody makes another person believe that they are inadequate. What they do is make suggestions to trigger their own self-doubt that's already in there, and then they start to believe their own self-doubt rather than actual reality that could be today. So if you take a very competent person, very intelligent adult today, but they've got a past trauma projection, they might have been degraded or demoralized or humiliated or bullied when they were younger, and they formed a residual self-image or a trauma image in their mind. And that belief that they are not good enough hasn't been resolved. Trauma that's unresolved will stay in the mind. It needs to be resolved through a process of therapy. However, even though a person might have that unresolved trauma, they can go and live their life today, and as long as that trauma doesn't get triggered, they will believe that they are okay because they're living in today's reality. But there's that other version of themselves, that conditioned self or that residual self-image that's going on in the background. So in essence, we've got this version of ourselves that we might believe to be true, even though it might not be true. But then we've got actual reality today, where we are this competent and skilled adult. And if you ever get that, where you know that you're good enough, but you doubt that you are, that's what's happening. There's an unresolved trauma response in your mind. So what's going on when it comes to gaslighting is a person isn't making another person feel a certain way. What they're doing is suggesting things to remind them of their unresolved trauma So they start to believe that unresolved trauma is true, even though it isn't, and then start to believe that they are inadequate, they are not good enough, and that they are just not capable of being competent in some way. So now with that said, let's take a look at what some examples of gaslighting can actually be. Now this is from a chat that I was having with the AI model Claude before. So gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone makes you question your own reality. Now again, that is from AI that picks up on everything that it can find on the internet. I would disagree with that particular statement. Someone doesn't make you question your own reality. They say certain things and then you start to question your own reality, memory or perceptions. The term, as mentioned, actually comes from the 1940s film we were just discussing, Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into thinking she's going insane. Some examples of gaslighting could be denying things that were said or did, even when you know they happened, trivializing your feelings, you're being too sensitive, you're overreacting, twisting conversations to make you feel like you are the problem or the cause of all the drama, contradicting your memory of events. Use phrases like, that never happened, or look, you're imagining things, make you doubt your own judgment or sanity. Examples of this could be a partner denies having a conversation that you clearly remember, someone insisting that you agreed to something that you know you didn't, a person tells you your emotional reactions are crazy or dramatic, or somebody rewriting history to make themselves look better. Okay, so those are examples of things that happen each and every day to millions of people all over the world. As I always say with any form of emotionally manipulative behaviour, it is a person who is traumatized themselves and then feels overwhelmed in their life and then uses emotionally manipulative behaviour to try to control other people's perspective so they become more pliant and controllable. The reason they're doing that is because they feel overwhelmed in their own life and they're trying to create less moving parts. Or it could be a trauma response in their past where they felt out of control and they're still fighting the past by trying to control everybody today. So there can be many, many reasons as to why a person would use gaslighting techniques. But always keep in mind, a person that uses gaslighting techniques is a person who's traumatized, using emotionally manipulative behavior to try and feel more self-validated or feel more secure in themselves. But the one thing that we always have to take into account is it's never just one way. See, a lot of people watching about gaslighting will say, my ex is a gaslighter, my boss is a gaslighter, they're the evil narcissist and I'm just the innocent party in all of this. Well, the one thing is for sure that emotionally manipulative behavior will only work on a person if they have vulnerabilities around a certain emotion. Now, gaslighting will come under the subgenre of what I call one of the 6 emotionally manipulative behaviors in my own training, and that is the fault finder. And the fault finder will rely on triggering shame in their target. So gaslighting will only ever work on a person if they have an unresolved trauma of shame. Now, shame is a belief that I am something wrong, and it could have been when that person was young and was dominated and put down. Every time they thought for themselves, every time they felt they had any independence, that was taken away and they were punished for that. So in essence, thinking for themselves and having their own agency was punished by pain. Giving away their power could have been rewarded. And if you're a child in that environment, that is why you can soon enough learn a process and a self-belief of I am not good enough, which is very different, by the way, from guilt. Guilt is a belief that I've done something wrong, and shame is a belief I am something wrong. They sound very similar, but there's a huge difference. Again, I'm going to be making more videos about this. So the one thing that I want you to look at is if you find you've got somebody in your life right now who is gaslighting you, who is getting you to try to believe that, what they're saying is right and what you believe is wrong is start to write down the situations. Maybe run it through other people. Do they see the situation as different to you? Because sometimes we can have very low self-worth and very low self-belief. And it could be that a person is using gaslighting techniques and it's triggering our shame, and then we are falling prey to the gaslighting. Or it could be that a person is just being quite honest about the situation. They're not manipulating anything, but we have very low self-worth, very low self-esteem, and we are hyper-vigilant about being abused, so we are misinterpreting what that person's saying to us, and it might actually be about us and not them. Now, I know that might not be the easiest thing to hear, but I went through this myself. When I was younger, I was so depressed that I wanted out. And I mean out. And that wasn't because I was having a bad day. It's because I thought there's no other way that I can even get through life. So that was the level that I was coming from. But I had to work through this myself as well. And it's important that, yes, we look at other people's emotionally manipulative behaviour and navigate around that. But it is also absolutely essential that we look inside ourselves and see, what trauma response am I carrying? And also, is there any hypervigilance that's distorting the reality that I'm looking at with this other person's emotionally manipulative behaviour? Because they might be using a level 1 emotionally manipulative behaviour and we might see it as a level 10. But it could be that they are using a level 10. And we might need to look inside and say, why is it that they're using this behaviour with me and not everybody else? But as a summary from this, I'd recommend watching the amazing film Gaslight from 1940 or 1944, because there are 2 versions. And I absolutely love the film. It's a black and white, really powerful. It was set as a very stereotypical view of back in the day where there's a man dominating an innocent woman. But as we all know today, it could be a man to a woman to a man to a man, or a woman to a woman. Is one person trying to sway a person's thoughts around their self-doubt so then they can take control. And that control will keep on going. But it's absolutely vital you look inside yourself and ask, if this person in your life is using emotional manipulative behaviour today, what vulnerability in you is it that they're trying to expose? And if they can do it, it's an absolute guarantee other people can do it as well. Because one thing I always find when I'm working through with people, especially one-to-one, is that if they meet one person who emotionally manipulates them in one way, it could be in a relationship, it could be at work, whatever. If they meet one person, there's many other people who are doing the exact same thing. And the one common denominator is them. It's their emotional vulnerability. Okay, so I hope this helps on gaining a greater understanding of what gaslighting actually is, and also is vitally important to understand what emotional vulnerabilities you're carrying in yourself, not to blame yourself and anything like that, but to understand what emotional vulnerabilities you're carrying. Because one thing is for sure, people using emotionally manipulative behaviour will only ever use them with people that trigger by their emotionally manipulative behaviour. If you don't trigger, they will stop using it, because the whole game, as it were, will come to an end. So if you've any thoughts or ideas or suggestions, feel free to put them in the comments below. And if there's anything that I may not have covered on this, again, put them in the comments below. Because I always say in every video that if you put a comment down and it's from your unique perspective of this situation, you never know that another person might read your comment and it changes their life forever. So let's all work together to help each other out, and I'll see you in the next video.